Welcome, beautiful people out there, to another session of 30 Minutes with a Modern Mystic. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Sascha.
And today's topic is retirement. Should I retire? How to retire? And so forth. The reason for this topic is I was just driving around picking a secondhand piece of furniture up in a 55 plus community, as they call them here. I'm not sure how they call them in Australia. So you have about 50 to 100 houses, homes, individual single-family homes, and all people in there. In order to be able to buy a house, you have to be above 55. Just pick something up, and I couldn't help but feel there was a sense of slight sadness or apathy in the air, and this is the end of my life, and what has it all been for? And all these emotions were kind of circulating in this community. Now, maybe I'm oversensitive, but that's what I felt. And it kind of touched me. And it made me feel a little bit sad. And I can see this not only here, but everywhere, that people, they work all their life or whatever they do, and then they get to retirement age and suddenly everything slows down, and suddenly it's like a slow death. And so I thought it'd be a nice topic to address, since you more than qualify with 85 years to talk about it.
I remember in Phoenix, there was a piece of Phoenix called Sun City in Arizona. And Sun City was, you had to be over 55 to live there. And yeah, I don't know how, it was a big area. And I thought that, this was years ago, and I thought that seemed a little bit sad to me. But the guy I met who came from there, he'd retired crippled in the wheelchair with arthritis. And 2 years later, living in Sun City in a climate with not much moisture, he was walking and running, even jogging. And he said it did amazing things for him. Anyway, that's not the point of this, what we're talking about.
So
we have over here retirement villages, and they're much smaller, and you've definitely got to buy a house, and you've got to have a bit of money. They're very much smaller. They're like enclaves of people who are retired with money, who spend the rest of their life playing tennis, drinking cocktails, and chasing tomorrow until they finally end up dead today.
Oh, here's an addition to the title of this topic, because you brought in a beautiful addition, which I forgot to mention: how to age gracefully. And I think that says it very well, and that's what I would like to hear you about.
Well, I don't know whether it's a genetic thing, but I have a brother, and he and I, neither of us, he's 88, and I'm 85, and neither of us even think. Our brains don't go toward retirement. You know, like he said, I said to him, we were talking about it one day, and he said, why would I want to retire? He said, what would I do? I'd go crazy. I said, well, I have a similar problem. But there are people who can retire, and they do retire gracefully. And I don't think it's a good idea to all be put in one area together. I agree there is a very common support system in place, and that for those people is valuable. But this is really about aging. The point is, once you start to think, I will retire, you start to think elderly. Then you get a pension card, and then you get concession cards. So this is cheaper, that is cheaper, because you're elderly. So we have a society basically that reinforces you are elderly. It reinforces age. And I absolutely accept that it's designed to be supportive, but in the reverse effect, if you're just continually reminded you're getting older, then it's not really a support. However, you know, we've got to talk about two streams. The third density people probably like everything we're talking about and what goes with it, whereas I suspect more fourth density don't really retire. So in America, you would have a lot of individuals, and in Europe, and certainly over here, who just keep going. And some of them have big gardens. I know one very well. You're talking to him. And so they they work in the garden and it becomes like their fitness center. But in the end, I think growing old gracefully is all about consciousness. I think it's about your relationship with yourself. And when you look into the mirror and you see that your skin has turned into a skin slide, as if it's all coming down off your shoulders and going to pour off the points of your elbows, and what you had once good pec muscles are hanging there like worn out dugs on an old dog. And you look at your legs and everything is sliding down towards your feet, and you smile and say, thank you, gravity, this is not working for me. Then I can understand people sort of beginning to relate to age. And so you've got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror, because it's going to happen, whether you want it or not, to be able to see yourself physically and realize that growing old gracefully is actually easily coming to terms with age, and then looking for all the assets, the wisdom, the experience, for some people the memories, and to use them, and to use them wisely. Like, I don't live on memories. I've got plenty, and sometimes I reminisce, but not too often, because my in the moment life is still full on. And so I don't live, but I do understand that people who retire and sit in a chair all the afternoon, they do need rich and wonderful memories, even though it's bittersweet. You know, it's part of the aging process. So growing old gracefully, as far as I'm concerned, is not a matter of not conceding to your age. It's absolutely realizing that the number of years that touch my biological body, and the age of I am ageless, and that there is a place where they can meet compatibly, so you retain the sense of I am an ageless being, and beauty, inner beauty grows. The older I get, the more my inner beauty grows. Or you can't do that at all, and you just get old and fat and helpless and die somewhere in your 80s.
What made the difference for you, other than just saying it was enlightenment? When did your outlook on aging, or your whole place in this whole retirement and aging process, change?
I think that I've never ever really had a retirement idea. It's never been in me. You know, I've had friends as we got older, they would talk about what they were going to do when they retire, and what what are you going to do, they'd say to me. I'd say, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to retire. So how do you mean? You've got to retire, and one day you'll be too old and infirm to do anything. Now, that was their thinking. I said, yeah, but I don't go along with that. I don't see why that should happen. I don't believe that dementia is a natural order of things. I think dementia is a state of consciousness where there's been an absence of a high regard for yourself as a spiritual being, and of growing in consciousness. And there's been tremendous left brain activity. There has been no deep sense of self as immortal and as a spiritual being. And so you've ridden on the wave of the admiration of your cleverness, and the time comes when you're not clever anymore, because you're retired. You've just been given your marching orders. And I know quite a few men who've been in this category, and suddenly they don't go to work the next Monday, and they're quite honestly devastated, even though they've had years to prepare. Their emotional body has been so ignored to the worship of their intellect, that suddenly they're emotionally unable to deal with it. They find, you know, okay, well, I'm going to have more time on my hands, but they completely forgot the emotional component that goes with that. And we're very emotional beings. So I think personally, one of my greatest assets is when I found unconditional love, emotional balance came with it. So emotionally, I'm not at all I'm not in any sort of conflict with my age or the age of the body.
And the emotional conflict that most people would go through is because of strong, I might even say indoctrination, right? Through society, through all our belief system.
You imagine they sit and watch television in the evening. Is there any advertising with elderly people doing vital things? There is advertising with elderly people being looked after in wonderful homes that can't wait for you to buy one of their houses. But everything is being advertised as strong, young, robust, vigorous, beautiful young people. So the whole emphasis today, more than ever I've seen it, is on youth, beauty, athleticism, and all that. And so the elderly people, and they've certainly had most of their life to practice, we humanities developed onlooker consciousness. Like everything in nature participates. It's a participant in the dance of life, but we're onlookers of the dance of life. The ballroom is in front of us and we sit and watch other people dance, and that's our life. So when you get older, there's nothing left but this onlooker consciousness that is very, very powerful. Old animals do not have that. They slow right down and absolutely right down as they leave the end of their life, but their life is coming to an end in a natural way. Our life, we should have 140 years. So there's nothing natural about the age of retirement beginning halfway through that. We start to retire halfway through what is our natural life. And although a lot of people don't believe we can live to 140, it's the basic rule of all of mammals on this planet, 7 times the development of the physical body. And pets don't reach their full life because they are emotionally connected to the owners, and the owner's emotions wash off on them, and it has a dramatic effect, particularly on dogs. But that's another subject.
It's very fascinating, the amount of people that I know who have been talking about their retirement plans for many years, just like you mentioned a couple minutes ago. And then the moment they reach retirement, and I've seen this really countless times among family members and friends, the moment they reach their retirement age, suddenly they fall into a deep depression, because
this is, yeah, I mean, that's a common one now over here, and I think it's worldwide, and probably in America, they have what they call men's sheds. And so all the men in an area go to these sheds and they have mateship. They have people they can sit and chatter with over coffee. And they're all like in workshops in these men's sheds. There'll be an area of engineering, an area of carpentry and craftsmanship. And there'll be gardens around them for men who like that. And so they have a great camaraderie. And that is so good. That is so good for those men. I absolutely applaud that idea. I think it's brilliant. And I'm also very fortunate. I'm surrounded by, you've heard of the Three Amigos. Now, yesterday, the Three Amigos, we came together. It was 35 degrees and we painted, the steps have been done and the railings put up. So we varnished them so they were sanded. The other 2 amigos got into it because this one had a bit of a cough and I did not want my lungs full of dust. And I'm futilely saying, put a mask on, put a mask on. That's the only good thing they're good for. Let them stop the dust. No, couldn't be bothered. They wouldn't do that. But I'm supported by 2 people about 20 years younger than me. When I say supported, they treat me exactly the same age as themselves. So yes, they have a certain respect for my age and a deference for maybe my wisdom, but nevertheless, we're 3 amigos and we don't do hierarchy. We don't have any hierarchy. So I'm all the time, I don't know anybody. I only know one person my age. So in my life, there's nobody my age. Everybody's younger than me. Now, I think that's the way it should be. I think these elderly people clustering together, a cluster of age, is depressing. It is all the time. Oh, old Joe died the other day. I really liked old Joe. Wish I'd said goodbye. And Fred, he's just gone that week later. There's all the time somebody dying. And to me, at that age, they need more integration with young people than anything. And over here, there are schemes to try to get elderly people with children in a sort of mentoring, supportive role. And it works to a degree, but anything that's pushed by government, it's got to be a spontaneous thing. So in the end, it all still comes back to consciousness. If you have youth in your consciousness, if you have agelessness, if you have feelings of immortality in your consciousness, I mean, at 85, life's treating me pretty well. And a lot of people, I have a job to convince them I'm not in my 70s. I'm in my 60s. And although that's very flattering, I don't buy into it too deeply, but I don't look my age. But on the other hand, I don't act my age. Half the time, I spend a lot of time laughing with the amigos. We get into hysterics. We go out to dinner with each other. We go to Japanese, Chinese, Asian, Australian, every sort of restaurant we can find on a semi-regular basis. And we have fun together. We have fun. We go for walks into some of the national parks. We work in my garden until we're ready to collapse. And if you push your body to its limits, the limits keep going further out. And so it's really important, as far as I'm concerned, to grow old gracefully physically, is to keep pushing your limits. When you retire, join the local fitness center and ask a trainer, so I can't maybe afford to have you on a regular basis, but will you just once a month meet with me so you can keep me on track that I'm getting fitter and stronger? I don't want to be Hercules, but I want to keep fit, and if I can build strength, I can. And they've actually had 90-year-olds, I've got a whole group of them, and work them out in gyms, which they all agreed to, and then they challenge people on the street, come in and see if you can lift weights of the 90-year-olds. And it was all very fun. And the 90-year-olds, all of them, could outlift any man off the street in his normal 40s, 50s, if he didn't work out. If he did, it wasn't counted. But if he wasn't a fitness person, they could outlift them. And that's what that did for those 90-year-old men. I mean, here they are, egos glowing and realizing, wow, muscles, in fact, if you keep using them, they keep going. They only become lumps of elasticated string hanging off the end of your fingers if you stop using them. That's a terrible picture, isn't it?
I would like to address maybe at least two practical scenarios, and see if we can come up with any good advice for these specific situations. So one could be someone in his 50s who does whatever he does or she does and is looking forward to retirement, maybe at 65 or 70. What would you say to that person? What is important for someone, let's say around 50, 55, if you have that idea in your mind, oh, I'm going to retire, so maybe there's something preventive you can do?
I think that those who are ready and want to retire, a lot of them, a big percentage of them, are deeply involved in hobbies and other things that they do where they'd be happy to give full time. My second son would love to retire, but he's got a business sort of hobby, which would be he could work in that full time. Although he does work for himself, he could do that full time. So retirement is different things for different people. To retire, to sit back, I would say, my friend, you're in big trouble, because to rest is to rust. And when we get elderly, we go down here pretty fast because we've got an attack. Most men, most women, most people have, let's just say you're thinking 200 to 300 words a minute, and a lot of tests by psychologists tend to say that up to like over 80% of all that chatter is negative, and to a high degree self-attack. So when you're retired and sitting there, that self-attack turns up and the aging process speeds up rapidly, and you can very quickly think yourself and emote yourself into cancer and other diseases, because disease simply means out of harmony. And when you're out of harmony with yourself in the moment, you're basically creating a disease. Everybody thinks they catch it. No, it's not true. We create. And
so what is something so what is something good to do if you are reflective enough to catch yourself? If, let's say you're 50, 45, 50, 55, whatever, you say, oh my God, I'm looking forward to resting in my retirement, but the underlying motivation, there's something else going on.
You know, I've never been there.
I haven't either, but I know people who are in that situation. So
I've never done that. I mean, at 45, I thought I was 25, and 85, I tend to think I'm 65. So I'm I've got a delay. I'm handicapped. I've got a 20-year delay behind me. And at 65, I have no plan to retire. And so, and at 105, I think we'll have to jump back. We'll have to skip the 80s, 105. I mean, it's attitude, it's relationship with yourself. When so many people, as they get older, and this is another factor, lose a loved one. They lose a child, they lose their spouse. Now, a lot of men, from the moment their wife dies, their dying process begins. It might take 20 years, but slowly they die, because they're not enough to live for in themselves. Others do it differently. Others might think, well, my wife hated fishing, I've always loved it, I'm going to go and do a lot of fishing now. And things like that. That happens. And, you know, they've each conceded to each other through many years of marriage. Wives, the woman handles the loss of the husband much better, but they are emotionally much stronger. There's no question about it. They generally handle it better, and you even get the term the merry widow, because they decide, I'm not going to be miserable and unhappy and ruin the rest of my life. And so we all handle things differently, but generally speaking, we've all been duped as regards to age. We have the pharmaceutical controlled medicine, and medicine accentuates we're getting older. You go in, I've got an ache in my arm. Well, how old are you? 77. Well, of course you've got an ache in your arm. What do you expect at 77? And so that's part of the whole process, that's part of the problem. But I suspect that, you know, over here, you often encounter married couples who have been married like 70 years, married over 70 years, delighting in each other's company still. And that is enough for a lot of them. Each other's company, they live for each other. But even better is to live for yourself, a husband and wife, two couples, a couple, two men, two women, it makes no difference, who live for themselves and deeply enjoy the friendship and relationship and the love they share with another person or other people. But that they have that love for themselves, that is a key factor. We become a species, we love other people. It was a sin once, a Catholic sin, to love yourself. You don't love yourself. And in fact, if you want to go into age gracefully, you need to love yourself unconditionally. That means to be unconditionally accepting of yourself, the way you are, who you are, the way your skin's going, the way your body shape was altered, that you don't make judgments, you just unconditionally accept, this is my body, and my God, what a beautiful being I am, what a wonderful soul I am. And by golly, when my time comes to move on, that's going to be fun, but hey, I'm having fun until that time arrives. That attitude, you're going to go into old age very gracefully. And you're going to attract people. People are going to be around you. People who admire you and respect you and want to talk to you because you're different. I had an aunt like that, my great aunt Polly. She was really elderly, and everybody so many people in the village would come and just sit and talk with her because she was loved. She was just loved, and everybody bring her problems to them, and she'd say, "Well, I don't know," and then go on to answer it beautifully. Because actual fact, she did know, but she never claimed to. An extraordinary woman. I was very blessed to have her in my life. And she grew old gracefully. Finally, cancer killed her. But there were circumstances as well. She lived with her brother, who was the most cantankerous, miserable sod there was on the planet at that time, I'm sure. And so she had to put up with him. And he was like a negative force energy next to her in her life. But yeah, growing old gracefully, I think, is all to do with your relationship with yourself.
Okay.
Every other huge amount of other factors, but in the end, it's your relationship with yourself.
I didn't want to interrupt. That was very beautiful, even though it had more to do with growing old than retirement, but I think it's still very important. Going back to what I said before, the second scenario that I wanted to bring up is someone who just entered retirement, who might be 65, 70 or whatever, and suddenly finds, oh my God, I'm feeling depressed, feels in that sad place, alone, sorry. And I mean, I think you said it already, everything that
Well, I would say for them, reach out, ask for help, tell them, I'm lonely, I'm feeling depressed, and I feel anxious. I would like some system, somebody. Can you get somebody who'll come and just chat, spend an hour a day with me? Is there a scheme that allows that? I think they definitely need to reach out before it gets too deep, because once they go into depression, they close the doors, and they need to swing the doors wider open while they still can. Because once you close the doors around you, it's a downhill process. You know, and it's not so good to die in hospital. It's much better to die at home, surrounded by people who love you. Hospitals today, and I don't knock the nurses in any way, I think they're remarkable, but it's almost like being in a conveyor belt system. They're overworked, not paid enough, and don't have enough beds. And I know when Chucky, Carolyn's son, was in the big, huge one in Cleveland, that enormous, huge hospital, heart place. It's got its own postcode. 40,000 people work there.
Wow.
I mean, you get lost in it. You get lost in the hospital. It's like a city in a city. And it's just, we're with him, and one group after another come and look at him, all students. And I thought, he said, I can't get any sleep. He said, this happens every hour or so. There's a bunch of students come through. He said, I understand they've got to learn, but he said, you just feel, he said, you're like a pig in a poke. Well, I'm not sure what a pig in a poke is, but that's what he felt like. So I'm not knocking that, but all I'm saying is, in retirement, you want to do your best to keep away from doctors, medicine, pharmacies, and hospitals. And whatever keeps you away from them, that is working for you. Absolutely working.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. I think there were some great pieces of advice in there and a lot of inspiration. And thank you once again. I didn't ask too many questions today, but I also didn't feel like asking too many questions. I thought you were doing a beautiful job at just sharing. So,
well, at my age, if I don't know a bit about it, I should do. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Of course, as always, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you share it, make sure you like it, make sure you comment below, and blessings. And if we don't see each other, oh yeah, we do. But anyhow, I can say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, well, we've got probably two more before Christmas, haven't we?
Yeah, we do.
You know, I just thought it doesn't matter how old your body gets, inner vitality is right down to your relationship with yourself. You can always have inner vitality. And if you've got that, it's good.
I agree. I think it has, well, now we start again, but I think it has a, I think it has a lot to do with purpose. If you feel some purpose, then you feel motivation, and then you feel that vitality. But if there's no purpose, if everything feels empty,
But
then
we ourselves should be enough purpose.
exactly. So the disconnection from ourselves, that's what it comes down to.
Well, when you put a purpose outside of yourself, you're disconnecting from yourself.
Yep.
But anyway, like you said, we're starting again.
Anyway, okay. See you.
Okay, see you.